"You're kidding," Dairine said. The woman laughed. "Often, but not at the moment." "You were Pichu?" Kit said. "I've been a lot of people. You'd be surprised at the names." She looked down with concern at the lone one, who lay like a shadow on the burning ground. "But rarely have those namings turned out so well." This was a bit much for Nita. "You're one of the powers, aren't you? We dragged you halfway across the universe and busted our guts when you could have... Why didn't you do something sooner?" "We have been, for billions of years," she said. "But we couldn't do anything really permanent until Dairine got here." Dairine's jaw dropped. "And now," she said, "if my brother here is amenable, we can start getting work done at last." Kit stared at her. "Your brother? Not much of a resemblance." "But shapes change as often as names do. I've had as many as he's had." She knelt down by the shadowy form that lay collapsed on the brightness. "Athene was one of mine, and Thor, and Prometheus, and Michael. But you're a girl." Nita threw Kit a wry look. The power grinned. "These things are relative," she said. "But even in your world, it's a byword. Men will fight bravely and be heroes, but for last-ditch defense against any odds, get a mother." She smiled. "Ask Dairine." Dairine grinned back. "I was the winged defender," she said. "He was my twin brother, the beautiful one. Then the disagreement happened, and there was war in heaven, and all the roles changed. I led the others in casting him out." She shook her head sadly. "But I always wanted him back, as did all the other powers as well. So my role changed again. I became Prometheus, and many another. I was sent to you again and again to put the power in your hands, wizardry and other powers. I never had to steal it. It was given me, from what source you well know. I had to help undo the evils my brother was doing, and again I intervened in many worlds. But we had a plan, that one day someone else would intervene, and he would stop doing evil himself. All it took was the entropy he himself had invented." She looked at Dairine. "Billions of years it took. All the redemptions there have ever been went toward this, from the greatest to the least. And finally, in the fullness of time, you came along and took my role, of your own will, and woke up a race powerful enough to change the whole universe, and gave them the fire." She glanced up at the mobiles and smiled. "How could he resist such a bait? He took the gamble, he always does. And losing, he won." "He killed you, though," Kit said. "I struck him down once. I had to come where he could do the same to me without my doing anything to stop him. Now the balance is even." The defender reached down and put a hand into the shadow. "And we are going where such matters are transcended, where all his old pains will shift. Not forgotten, but transformed. Life in this universe will never have such a friend. And as for his inventions, look closely at death, and see what it can become." The long, prone darkness began to burn from inside, the way a mountain seems to do with sunset. "Brother," the defender said. "They're waiting." The light began to shift. Nita looked up and around in wonder. The planet seemed to be going transparent around them, or not specifically transparent. It was as if, one by one, other vistas were being added to it. Seacoasts, forests, landscapes she couldn't understand, cities, empty spaces that were dark and yet burned. 10 other worlds, 20, 100, in an ever-deepening overlay that enriched without confusing. Alternate universes? Nita thought, and then thought perhaps not. It was too simple an explanation. She looked at the defender and found the same change and enriching in her. and in the steadily brighter burning form she bent over. Nita felt inclined to squeeze her eyes shut, not from pain, but from a feeling of sheer insufficiency, of being involved in matters too high for her. "Never think it," said the defender, beneficent lightnings flickering about her as other forms and other names came and went in glory. "Never think we were made to be less than equals in the one. Some day you will surpass us, and still be our equals, and both you and we will rejoice at it. Brother, look up, and see the way home. Let them see what they have triumphed over." The lone power rose up, slowly, like one discovering walking after a life of lameness, and Kit and Nita and Daireen all gazed, and speech left them. Nita's eyes filled with tears as she wondered how darkness could be so bright. Light-bringer he was, and star of the morning, and like the morning star, he needed the darkness, and shone brighter in it, and made it blessed. "Home," he said, gazing upward, just the one word. All eyes followed his. Nita found herself looking into endless layered vistas that were not a mere radiant mirror like Time Heart, not a repair, a consolation for the marred world, but something deeper, closer to the true heart of things, fiercer, more dangerous and more beautiful, something that had never gone wrong to begin with, that the Lone One had never had power to touch, a reality that burned like fire, but still was sweeter than water after thirst, and fed the thirst itself, and quenched it again in delight and more desire, a state so much more solid and real than mere physical being and thought, that Nita held on to herself for delight and terror, afraid she would fade away in the face of it like a mist in full sun. Yet she wanted to see and feel more of it, for she knew that there was more. How many more realities like this, piled one on another in splendor, towered up into the burning depths of creation, each more concrete, more utterly real than the last. Even the Lone One and the Defender looked stilled and diminished in all their strength and beauty as they gazed up into the light. "Yes," the Defender said, "it's greater since you left. If these rough-sketch universes expand, how should that of which there's studies not be doing so as well? But there's room for you. There was always room. You'll see." They turned to look at Nita and Daireen and Kit and the mobiles. "Best make your farewells," the Defender said. Daireen turned to the mobiles. 4 or 5 whole seconds it took to say everything that she wanted to say to them, most of it not needing words. "Don't forget to kill that spell," she said finally. "Shall we come to see you?" Gygo said, bumping up against her knee. "You better not for the moment, guys," Daireen said. "I've got a lot of explaining to do at home, and I don't know when I'll be back. It may take a while." She bent to pick up the computer. "But you won't miss me, huh? I'm here. I'm with you. I'm in you." "We will come later," said another voice from down by her knee. It was Logo, healed as the one who had been in it was healed. "We'll come to where you live, when we're wiser in being human, and wake your quick life up." Daireen grinned. "Just what we need, real computer wizards. Okay, you guys, it's a fair swap. It's going to take a while for me to learn to be a computer." She paused to make the usual effort, and the words came out easily. Easily. "I love you, you know that?" They didn't have to answer. The light was growing past even a wizard's ability to handle it, even the ability of one being sustained by 2 of the powers that be. "Time," said the Defender. "Brother, will you do the honors, or shall I?" "Let me." And darkness surrounded them. Nita had been afraid of the dark when she was little. For a terrible moment, that fear swept down on her again, and then shifted completely. Something was looking at her, but not a thing like the things she imagined under the bed when she was little. Someone. Not a physical presence, it needed none, but a still, dark regard weighing on her soul, dark and benign and inexpressibly joyous. It was no less a weight for all that, and terrible, but not in any way that made her afraid. It bore down on her, considering her in endless calm, knowing her inside out, and the dark splendor of its scrutiny so scorched and pierced her with some deeper kind of light that she would have gladly gone swimming in a sun for relief from it. Her skin and her bones and her brains cried out to be out of there, but her heart sang with irrational joy to match the others, even while rationality cursed and twisted under the weight of being completely known. It spoke to her, not with words, but as if she were thinking to herself. My shadows are still abroad in the world. As I have done evil, for some time yet they still shall. Stop them. Stop me. We will, always. Then the worlds are saved, as long as you save them all over again, every day. Deal, said another thought, as if her own mind spoke to itself, but the thought was Kit's. And light broke out again. Backyard light. Nita and Daireen's backyard, dark with evening, and hanging low in the west, the evening star. Voices floated out the windows from inside, Tom and Carl still talking to the Callahans. In the elm tree, a mockingbird was doing blue jay imitations and demanding muffins. The three looked at each other and sighed. Daireen headed around the house to the screen door, yanked it open, and hollered, "Hi, Mom! Hi, Dad! We're home!" Pandemonium broke out inside. Kit paused in the doorway. "What are we going to tell Tom?" he said. "The truth?" They went in time to see Daireen go straight to her mom, willingly, and then to her dad, and hug them hard. This triggered a few minutes of loud noises, brief crying spells, and much fast talking. In the midst of it, Nita met her mother's astonished eyes over her dad's and Daireen's shoulders. She shrugged and grinned. Some things not even being a wizard was going to help her explain. It didn't last, of course. Daireen promptly disentangled herself. "If I don't go to the bathroom," she said, "I'm going to blow up." And she headed up the stairs. On the living room coffee table, calmly, as if it agreed with her, the apple she had dropped there grew legs, climbed down, and went after Daireen. Nita glanced at Kit, and together, as usual, they sat down to face the music.
The End. You've been listening to High Wizardry by Diane Duane, narrated by Christina Moore. This work is copyrighted 1990 by Diane Duane. This recording is copyrighted 2000 by Recorded Books, Incorporated. Author Diane Duane paid a visit to the studios of Recorded Books in the autumn of 1999 to talk with us a while about the writing of her books. You will find that interview on the final cassette. Recorded Books Incorporated presents The Author Talks, a conversation with Diane Duane. In the autumn of 1999, while the recording of High Wizardry was underway in the studio, Diane Duane paid a visit to Recorded Books in New York to talk a while with staffer Denise Longteau about the writing of her books.